When darkness falls and consciousness fades into sleep, most people believe they're simply entering a state of rest. But what if I told you that this nightly ritual is actually preparing us for something far more profound? What happens when that gentle drift into slumber becomes our final earthly transition? The most peaceful deaths often occur during sleep, when the soul naturally loosens its grip on the physical vessel. Unlike traumatic departures, dying in sleep resembles turning off a light switch rather than yanking out a power cord. The body releases its hold gradually, without the panic or resistance that accompanies conscious death. Consider Maria, a 78-year-old grandmother who went to bed after reading to her grandchildren. Her family found her the next morning with a serene expression, as if she had simply chosen not to wake up. What they didn't realize was that Maria's soul had been preparing for this transition through years of dream experiences and out-of-body sensations during sleep. During our nightly rest, consciousness operates on multiple levels. While the physical mind shuts down, the soul remains active, often traveling to astral planes and connecting with spiritual dimensions. These nocturnal journeys aren't random. They're rehearsals for the ultimate departure. Every dream where you've flown, every moment you felt detached from your physical form, every sensation of floating or traveling to unknown places, these are your soul's practice sessions. The renowned mystic Edgar once described how souls become familiar with non-physical realms through sleep experiences. This familiarity creates a bridge that makes the final transition feel natural rather than frightening. Those who die in their sleep often slip away so smoothly because their consciousness has already mapped the territory they're entering. Unlike waking death, where fear and attachment can create resistance, sleep death allows the soul to depart in its most receptive state. The ego's defenses are down, worldly concerns have faded, and the spirit can respond to the calling from higher dimensions without internal conflict. Think of Robert, a 65-year-old teacher who had been experiencing vivid dreams for months before his passing. In these dreams, he would find himself walking through gardens of extraordinary beauty, meeting relatives who had passed years before. His wife noticed he would wake with unusual peace, describing these experiences as more real than reality itself. When Robert passed quietly in his sleep 3 months later, his wife understood that those dreams weren't just dreams. They were preparation sessions, gentle introductions to the realm he would soon inhabit permanently. The transition during sleep operates on frequencies beyond our waking comprehension. As the physical body enters deeper states of rest, the electromagnetic field that binds soul to flesh gradually weakens. This isn't a violent separation, but rather a natural expansion, like a flower opening its petals at dawn. The soul, already accustomed to temporary departures during dream states, recognizes this familiar sensation and responds with acceptance rather than fear. Medical professionals often note how those who die in their sleep show minimal signs of struggle. Their faces remain peaceful, their bodies relaxed, as if they simply chose to extend their nightly journey indefinitely. This phenomenon occurs because the soul exits through the same pathways it uses during regular sleep cycles, following well-traveled routes to higher dimensions. The moment the soul completely separates from its physical vessel during sleep, something extraordinary occurs, an awakening more vivid and clear than any earthly consciousness. This isn't the gradual emergence from a dream, but rather an instant expansion of awareness that encompasses dimensions previously hidden from human perception. Picture James, a 72-year-old retired engineer who had always been skeptical about spiritual matters. The night he passed, his daughter sleeping in the next room experienced something unexplainable. She awakened at exactly 3:17 a.m. with an overwhelming sense that her father was standing beside her bed, radiating a peace and clarity she had never witnessed in him during his lifetime. When she checked on him minutes later, she found his body at complete rest, but somehow knew his essence had already departed. What James experienced in that transition moment was the soul's natural state of being, unlimited by physical constraints, free from the filters of brain chemistry and sensory limitations. The consciousness that had been compressed into a human form suddenly expanded like water released from a dam, flowing into spaces it had always belonged to, but temporarily forgotten. Those who study near-death experiences often describe this awakening as accompanied by brilliant light. But this illumination isn't external. It's the soul recognizing its own luminous nature. During sleep death, this recognition happens gradually rather than suddenly, allowing for a smoother adjustment to expanded consciousness. Consider the account of Margaret, whose husband William passed during an afternoon nap. She reported that for 3 days following his death, she could feel his presence moving through their home with a lightness and freedom he had never possessed while bound to his aging body. She described it as sensing him finally being himself, the essence she had glimpsed in rare moments throughout their 50-year marriage, now fully liberated. The soul awakening in the astral plane discovers that thought becomes reality instantaneously. The limitations of physical laws no longer apply. Distance is meaningless. Time becomes fluid, and communication happens through direct consciousness transfer rather than words. This explains why many people report visitation dreams from recently deceased loved ones who seem more alive and vital than they had been in their final years. This awakened state allows the soul to perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously. What appeared as separate realities during physical life, past, present, and future, merge into a comprehensive understanding. The soul can observe its recent earthly existence while simultaneously aware of its eternal nature and future possibilities. Unlike the confusion that sometimes accompanies traumatic death, sleep transition allows the soul to awaken gradually into these expanded capabilities. It's like slowly adjusting to bright sunlight after being in a darkened room, rather than having someone suddenly turn on floodlights. The newly awakened consciousness often experiences what can only be described as remembering rather than learning. Abilities that seemed impossible during physical life, telepathy, clairvoyance, bilocation, are recognized as natural soul functions that had been temporarily suppressed by physical incarnation. In the sacred moments following the soul's departure from its physical vessel during sleep, something remarkable occurs that challenges our understanding of death as a solitary journey. The newly liberated consciousness doesn't travel alone. It's met by a welcoming committee of spiritual beings whose presence transforms what could be a disorienting experience into one of profound comfort and guidance. Take the remarkable account of Elizabeth, whose 84-year-old mother, Catherine, passed peacefully in her sleep after months of declining health. For weeks prior to Catherine's death, Elizabeth noticed her mother speaking to seemingly empty spaces in her room, addressing people by names Elizabeth didn't recognize. When she questioned her mother about these conversations, Catherine would smile and say, "Oh, they're just visiting friends checking on me." On the night of Catherine's passing, Elizabeth felt compelled to sit beside her mother's bed. At the moment of transition, she witnessed what she could only describe as a gathering, a sense of multiple presences surrounding her mother with such love and anticipation that the room seemed to vibrate with welcome. These spiritual guardians aren't random encounters, but purposeful meetings orchestrated by higher dimensional intelligence. The beings who approach during sleep death often include departed family members, spiritual guides who have worked with the soul throughout its earthly journey, and advanced souls whose mission involves assisting in transitions. Their presence serves multiple purposes, providing comfort, offering guidance through unfamiliar territory, and helping the newly departed soul adjust to its expanded state of consciousness. The phenomenon of pre-death visitations supports this understanding. Consider David, a hospice worker who documented hundreds of cases where dying patients reported visits from deceased relatives in the days and weeks before their own passing. In his observations, those who died peacefully in their sleep had often mentioned feeling prepared or expected by their spiritual visitors. One patient, Maria Santos, told David 3 days before her death, "My husband keeps coming to show me the way. He says when I'm ready, I just need to follow him through the door in my dreams." These guardian spirits understand the unique challenges of consciousness transition. They know that the soul, having been compressed into physical form for decades, needs gentle assistance in remembering its true nature and capabilities. Their guidance helps prevent the confusion that can occur when unlimited consciousness suddenly finds itself free from physical constraints. The assistance provided goes beyond emotional comfort. These guides help the transitioning soul navigate the initial stages of astral existence, teaching it how to move through thought rather than physical effort, how to communicate through consciousness transfer, and how to access the Akashic records for life review. They serve as translators between the soul's human memories and its eternal understanding. Dr. Raymond Chen, a researcher studying consciousness at the moment of death, documented cases where family members reported unusual phenomena during their loved one's sleep death. In one case, Thomas Mitchell's 3 daughters, sleeping in separate locations, all experienced the same dream on the night their father passed. They saw him walking arm in arm with their deceased mother through a garden filled with people they recognized as grandparents and great-grandparents, all appearing as young, radiant versions of themselves. The timing of these spiritual encounters isn't coincidental. The guides arrive during the soul's most receptive state, deep sleep, when the ego's resistance is minimal and the consciousness is already partially separated from physical awareness. This coordination suggests a level of interdimensional communication and planning that operates beyond our current understanding of death and dying. These guardian beings also serve as bridges between worlds, helping the transitioning soul maintain connection with earthly loved ones while simultaneously introducing it to higher dimensional realities. They facilitate the soul's ability to send comfort to grieving family members through dreams, synchronicities, and subtle signs that often bring peace to those left behind. The presence of these spiritual guardians explains why death during sleep often appears so peaceful to observers. The departed isn't struggling with an unknown journey, but is being lovingly guided by familiar faces toward a destination that feels like coming home rather than departing into the unknown. As the soul settles into its new reality beyond physical death, a profound understanding emerges that fundamentally changes how we perceive the end of earthly life. What we call death is revealed to be merely a transition between states of existence, much like changing rooms in an infinite mansion of consciousness. The most startling discovery for the newly departed soul is the realization that death during sleep wasn't an ending, but a graduation. Consider the experience shared by Patricia, whose husband Michael appeared to her in a vivid dream 3 weeks after his peaceful passing. In this encounter, Michael explained that his awareness had actually expanded rather than diminished. He described being able to perceive the interconnectedness of all life, understanding patterns and purposes that had been invisible during his physical existence. "I can see the threads now," he told her. "The golden threads that connect every soul, every experience, every moment of love we've ever shared." This expanded perspective reveals one of the most comforting truths about sleep death. Consciousness doesn't fade, but transforms into something far more comprehensive. The soul discovers it can simultaneously exist on multiple levels of reality, maintaining awareness of its earthly connections, while exploring vast spiritual dimensions previously inaccessible. The journey that begins with sleep death follows natural laws of spiritual evolution. Like water always flowing toward the ocean, consciousness moves toward increasingly refined states of being. Those who transition peacefully often find themselves in what mystics describe as the intermediate planes, realms that serve as adjustment periods between earthly existence and higher spiritual states. In these intermediate realms, the soul undergoes what can be understood as a cosmic life review, but not the terrifying judgment often depicted in religious imagery. Instead, it's more like watching a beautifully edited film of one's existence, where every act of love, kindness, and growth shines with luminous clarity, while mistakes and shortcomings are viewed with compassionate understanding rather than condemnation. Take the account of Dr. Sarah Williams, whose near-death experience during surgery provided insight into this process. She described reviewing her life not as a judge, but as both observer and participant, feeling the impact of her actions on others, while simultaneously understanding the soul growth each experience had provided. "I felt such overwhelming love for every version of myself I had ever been," she shared. Even the broken, struggling versions were held in perfect acceptance. The soul's vibrational frequency at the time of sleep death determines its initial destination in these spiritual realms. Those who lived with love, service, and spiritual awareness naturally gravitate toward planes of similar resonance, while souls burdened with unresolved anger, fear, or attachments may find themselves in denser spiritual environments that offer opportunities for healing and growth. But here's the remarkable truth. No soul is ever abandoned or condemned to eternal suffering. The universe operates on principles of infinite love and endless opportunities for evolution. Even souls that initially find themselves in challenging spiritual territories are surrounded by guides and teachers ready to assist their journey toward greater light and understanding. The continuation of consciousness after sleep death also reveals the eternal nature of relationships. Love connections forged during earthly life don't dissolve, but transform into soul bonds that transcend physical limitations. Married couples, parent-child relationships, deep friendships. These connections continue to grow and evolve in spiritual realms, free from the constraints and misunderstandings that sometimes clouded earthly interactions. This understanding transforms grief into a different emotional experience. While the pain of physical separation remains real, the knowledge that consciousness continues and relationships endure provides a foundation of hope beneath the sorrow. Death during sleep becomes less about final farewell and more about temporary separation, like loved ones traveling to different countries with the promise of reunion. The final truth revealed through understanding sleep-death is perhaps the most liberating. Every soul will eventually complete its journey through all levels of spiritual existence, returning to the source from which it emerged, enriched by every experience, relationship, and lesson encountered along the way. Death during sleep is simply one gentle step in this eternal dance of consciousness, a peaceful transition in an infinite journey of love, growth, and ultimate return to divine unity. In this light, sleep becomes not just nightly rest, but practice for the ultimate homecoming that awaits every soul. If these insights about the peaceful transition during sleep death have touched your heart and expanded your understanding of what lies beyond physical existence, you're not alone in this spiritual journey. There are countless more mysteries of consciousness, life after death, and the soul's eternal path waiting to be explored. Subscribe to our channel to continue discovering the profound wisdom that can transform how you view life, death, and everything in between. Hit that notification bell so you never miss these life-changing revelations that bring comfort to the grieving and understanding to the seeking soul. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message of hope and continuity. Together we can spread the understanding that death is not an ending, but a beautiful transformation into expanded consciousness. Your spiritual awakening journey continues with each video. Don't let fear of the unknown keep you in darkness when the light of understanding is just one click away.